So I'm gonna do a commentary for the 24 Nokhud I did last week on Tyrannical. I'm kind of just gonna highlight it out of my Twitch VOD. Not entirely sure what I say throughout it. I know that earlier, two dungeons prior to this, I was in a key with this DH, and he basically called me shit. So this was kind of a revenge dungeon for me. So we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping I bring up my talents for this so I can explain why I went what. Okay, yeah, I did. Basically, I went the typical single target build. This week I did end up swapping Frostbite for Slick Ice in Tyrannical keys. I just think the higher the key I went, the more important Slick Ice actually was to my damage. While Frostbite definitely helps in AoE situations, the higher the Tyrannical keys, the more important choke points are, actually, like the bosses are. So having the higher boss damage actually mattered. And this was also my first week transferring over from using Time Anomaly to using Temporal Warp. Yes. I used to always use Time Anomaly, and I've now basically only been using Temporal Warp, which is definitely better, and is a lot better if you can have another Luster in your group, like an Evoker or something like that, but I think it's still better without it. You can get at least an extra Lust in between every single group Lust. So over a 30-minute dungeon, that's basically 3 Lusts in packs you decide. So that's why I've been running that. On Tyrannical, the trash also isn't as important in Nokhud. So I also ended up running Time Manipulation instead because I wanted a little bit more AoE damage instead of the utility that Dragon's Breath would bring. There aren't too many interrupts that you actually need Dragon's Breath for. Most of the people in the first area you can't really use Dragon Breath for any of it, other than rallying the clan, but that's not really needed too much. In the second area, there's really only 1 or maybe 2 mobs per pack of like 4 or 5 that Dragon's Breath even stuns. Most of the other ones aren't even stunnable, so I don't really think it's worth it there. The only one that it sometimes would be worth would be the last area, or well, I guess the third area. With either the birds, you can DB the Rotting Winds, or you can DB any of the casters and the Necrotic Eruptions, but I ended up just going for Time Manipulation. I wanted more Ice Novas, more AoE damage. I basically just took full damage in this and didn't really worry about utility. So that was my plan for this dungeon. But yeah. I'm actually just going to mute it because I don't think I really have any good commentary for it. So plus I got music playing for you guys right now anyways. I'm hoping I file, please. Okay. I was worried I didn't file on this key too. I had a key I did later on this week that I just didn't file in at all, which was quite the yikes. It was my 23 halls key. Okay, so the main thing with these packs that you need to know is... Okay, I'm going to pause it because I already did it. Or not pause it. Any of these packs, I don't know the exact name of the guys. I'll say it if I mouse over one of them. The guys that charge at you, they always target the person that's farthest out from the pack. Whatever the Swift Step is called. And they always put that big bleed on you. On Tyrannical, it's not as big as a deal as it is on Fortified. On Fortified, like, if you get hit by 2 of them, you're just dead. On Tyrannical, it's not as big of an issue, but still hurts. So if you can, you want to try cycling who's getting the actual Swift Stabs. The one good thing with Frost Mage is you can actually, if you see the Swift Stab getting casted, you can Ice Nova or Frost Nova in the group, and they'll stop their charge. But as you saw, the Druid was the furthest one out to start, and then I ended up being the furthest one out. So then it went to me for the second. The second Swift Stab went to me. It's something you need to manage in higher keys. It's not as big of an issue on lower keys because the Swift Stab doesn't hurt as much, but on higher keys, the Swift Stab will basically two-shot you. The bleed also trucks itself. So that first pack, I actually ended up getting both the first and second, so I ice blocked it. I ice blocked the bleed that it puts on you. So I'm using my second Time Lust. Wow, Time Lust. My second hero at the start here, anyways. I'm also running away because I hate this bird. The Ohana or whatever it's called. The War Ohuna. It seems to always target a ranged, I believe. And that shit hurts. So I always like to target that thing first. That Rally the Clan that this mob just casted is the one you always want to interrupt. If you can. That sort of is the only thing that DB would have been useful for, but I also have Blast Wave, which Blast Wave works for it as well. One really good thing with Spiteful for Frost Mage is that we're able to basically keep probably very close to 100% uptime as we can with Spitefuls. So right now the Druid's the farthest one out, so they should be getting the next charge, the next Swift Stab. I think I'm the furthest one out now, so I should be getting the next Swift Stab. Yep. And I think I end up going closer to make sure I don't get the next one. Or should, at least. Theoretically, you do want to try and bounce them back and forth. Because you only have enough defensives. You only have a certain amount of defensives. You're not going to live through all of them. Like I said, on Tyrannical, it's not as big of an issue. They don't hurt as much, but you see I'm still getting... The bleed is still chunking me for 20% of my health. And this is on a Tyrannical. On a Fortified, it's obviously a lot more. So... I'm Frost Noving here not for damage. I was Frost Noving really for the Spitefuls because I had the Spiteful chasing me and I didn't want to move. It's just helpful that it's also somewhat of a damage increase for us. But it was not my point to use them as damage. Also, if you hear me munching, I apologize. I'm eating caramel apples. And yes, I know, caramel. It's caramel. Bite me. So, one thing that was a little sus with this dungeon, we never linked the route before we started. So I had no clue we were pulling these side packs. I never knew how many we were pulling. I did not know when to use CDs. I think I actually ended up holding CDs here for a second. I don't think I ended up using my trinket again. Which I probably just should have sent it. It's better to just get it on cooldown. I don't know if we're going to boss next. I don't know if we're doing another pack next. Like here, I probably should have just sent my trinket. Yep. All right. I'm glad I sent my trinket. See, I'm thinking what I should be doing post doing it. This is good. This means I was thinking of the right thing in the moment. It's always easier to see things post doing them rather than seeing them live. Also, if I knew we were running to Narnia, I would have like killed those Spitefuls and mounted. Also, I ended up focusing the worst. Okay, the name of the guys are the War Spears that do the Swift Stab. You see, it's chunking me, even on Tyrannical. I'm getting chunked from that bleed. I probably could have used defensive. I have wow, I cannot speak. Health pot, and greater invis and mirror image. This is kind of an oof for me, not having anything to really get over here because I'm literally in Icy Veins this entire time, which is rather unfortunate. I should have probably sent my last few Ice Lance procs while I still had Icy Veins, and then shifting powered after, just to get as much actual like haste benefit as I could. Also, I should not have canceled my cast. One thing I did here. This is a really good thing you can actually do if shit goes sideways. Our tank died. I immediately popped images. Weirdly enough, my images were evading and were inside this thing. Not intentional at all. Don't ever try to do that. This was not the intention. But if the tank dies and you start getting threat, pop your images, because your images will at least take a few hits. They'll take, probably on these keys, they'll each only take 1 hit each. But that should be enough time for someone to get a B-res off. In which case, you probably blinked away, and the tank will be able to get aggro back when they get resed. See, this is the best part about Spiteful's, is I can actually just farm them for Icy Veins. So I do get another Lust here, which I did kind of save for the boss. Not the best, because I won't get my next one up for a bit, but when you are running your typical M+ build, you'll always have Freezing Rain. Always place your Blizzard where the Sabotars are going to go. If you're running Frostbite, it has a chance to freeze them, but otherwise it's always, obviously, we still always Blizzard on 2 target with the M+ build. So Blizzard, when the Saboteur comes out, is still beneficial. I would recommend somewhat single targeting them on higher keys, because they do still have a fuck ton of health and actually need to get killed. I would also recommend having some sort of defensive for every single Shards of Stone if you can. Even if it's just barrier. Every little bit helps. Not needed. You'll know, even at this point, it's not a point where I'm getting one shot if I don't use a defensive. But each of these Sabotars have 2.1 million health. But even with barrier I got chunked down to 70% health. So like, not that bad, but probably on like a 20. My assumption would be on a 25 or a 26. That would probably one shot you if you don't have a defensive. So mirror image, barrier, greater invis, anything like that. You can also alter it every time. Well, not every time, but it should be up. Alter should be up for every other time. You can just alter the shards hit. So no defensives there brought me from 100 to 23%. I just altered it right after. Like I said, you can alter it almost every other one. With Quaking, there is a lot of times where I do just send a flurry without frostbolting beforehand. That's kind of just because I would rather always be casting, you know, the Frost ABC rule of always be casting and not be doing nothing. I'd rather not waste a global and just send a flurry without a Frostbolt shatter. Also, you should be able to know which one the Saboteur is actually going to, depending on where the last 2 were, because they never go to the same one. At least in my testing so far, They never go to the same one or same two in a row. They always do 3 new ones. That means it won't ever be this left one next. Yeah, so it's the middle one. I did end up frost numbing this just to make sure it doesn't destroy the ballista or whatever it's called. The only thing that sucks with this on Tyrannical is the plan is normally to lust first pull and then the rest of the bosses. But the Tyrannical fights take so long that you don't. So I don't remember if we actually lusted on Waterfall. I think we did. Okay, we didn't. So this is one part that's really bad for Temporal Warp because of this. Might be something that I look at changing in the future, but we'll have to see. Because this means I basically hold hero for the next whatever it is, like 6 minutes. We started this what at 28 minutes left. So there's a lot of the time where I just get no value from the talent. I get no value from Temporal Warp, where I could get some value from Time Anomaly, but. Not a Frost Mage specific thing, but the same way you collect the little orbs on the boss, those Storm Surge totems do the exact same thing. They increase your damage and healing. Unfortunately, we pulled these mini guys, and then our DH also just insta-purged them. As a Frost Mage, you want to spell steal them. Or as any form of mage. Depending on whether it's fortified or tyrannical, you want to spell steal them either for the packs or for the boss. Normally I would just recommend doing it for the boss, but lately I've been thinking that fortified it's better to do it for the packs. And just let any of the storm bolts that are on you go off. Also, that rogue thought our timer was a GG already, and forgot we did like 3 extra packs in the first area. For us, I would recommend always trying to focus the Stormcaller. We can always Blast Wave or DB or anything the smaller adds, but the big Stormcaller ad in all these groups can't be CC'd. He can't be Dragon's Breath, he can't be Blast Waved. So if you do have any form of like the AoE stuns, use them for the Storm Bolts on the smaller guys, and like the Tempest as well. But the bigger guy has to get interrupted. I don't think there's any AoE that actually works on or like AoE stun that works on them. So always use your single interrupts for the Stormcaller, the big Stormcaller. For these packs and all of these, the ones that have the storm shields or whatever they're called, you can spell steal the storm shields. I think they're called the mobs are called like storm bursts or something like that. Primal Storm Shield, yeah. You can spell steal any of the storm shields that are on them, which are very beneficial. And you basically need to on higher keys because they will fuck your melee up. Or anyone that's hitting them, really. Because Primal Storm Shield, to my knowledge, not exactly positive. It does damage whenever it gets hit, or you do like additional damage. So you need to spell steal that. Or have it get purged. So again, here I'm focusing the Stormcaller ad, just making sure that I actually get the interrupts on those, and if I can, using Blast Wave for the smaller ones, and obviously collecting these little orbs. I probably should have sent orb here. It is 3 target and it's spiteful. I probably actually could have gotten my orb back because of from 3 target. Because I can obviously farm orb off of all the spitefuls. When it's spiteful week, you can send your thing a lot more. You can send your cooldowns a lot more liberally because there's a lot more time for you to actually get the CDR back. So I was very worried for this boss and Tyrannical just because the Raging Tempest fucks. You need to make sure as a mage, I'll pause it when it's going out, that Energy Surge cast is something that we need to purge. It will murder your tank, especially on higher Tyrannical keys if it's not purged. So anyone that can purge it, spell stealing it doesn't do anything for mages because it just does additional damage on your melee attacks. But yeah. Also, you need a defensive for every single one of the lightning strikes on higher Tyrannical keys. I think I saved Barrier for every single one of them. And you saw Barrier still chunked me from full health to, I think it was 47% or something like that. Alter time, every single one of the electrical storms. I'm also using Mirror Image just because this is a huge pain point for healers. We were all really healthy. It is really important that your healer actually maintains their 10 stacks to this. That's something that you can help with by just not stealing their stacks. Try and be cognizant of where your healer is, and if you see them going to get stacks, don't go to take them. Like our healers to the right of me, I see our druids over here. I'm cognizant of where they are. Anytime they're going to be going for stacks, try and let them get them. I typically like to get my stacks basically as soon as to the boss as I can. It kind of prolongs the stacks that you currently have. I'm doing a commentary. Yeah, it's a VOD. I'm doing commentary for my key last week. I should probably change that in my title. But, you know. If you ever get in danger in any of these electrical storms, you can always pop Ice Block. It's always a safe thing. I mean, you'd obviously rather survive the electrical storm than risk dying. So if you need it, use it. Also, I hated this rogue. Man was just yoinking all my stacks. So, this is one thing that I was actually being ethical with. You saw that I saw my healer was next to me and was coming to pick it up. Let your healer prioritize the stacks. Damage is not an issue on this boss. Healing is the breakpoint for this boss. Not your damage. Yes, your damage might not be great, which mine's actually fucking slamming. But always prioritize your healer getting the orbs over you. I'm gonna pop another Ice Advance here because he was so close to being dead. Not really worth it when he was that low. At this point, we also know our timer is very tight. We have 18 minutes going into the last area. Also, you can see how much healing that boss actually requires. Our healer's doing 97k HPS, which is ridiculous. We obviously lived, so that's how much you actually need. But again, prioritize your healer at all costs for that boss. If it takes longer, it takes longer. You'd rather have it take longer and missing the key from a damage perspective than wipe and not even have a chance of finishing the key. I am running the full, basically single target. I'm running the Splintering Cold instead of Sub-Zero. Slick Ice instead of Frostbite. So my single target's very good. Obviously, Frost's AoE is still decent. Nothing to be ashamed at, but... Also, I almost pulled those birds there, which would have been not good. This is the only spot that DB would have actually been good in. There are a few things that Frost Mage kind of trolls on in this entire area. The Death Speakers, I think is their name. They do the Chant of the Dead, which is like that big AoE ring on the ground that you have to get out of. And if you don't get out of it, you basically just get one shot, and any friendly mob, or I guess it's enemy mob for us, any of their friendly mobs that are in it get both a damage done increase and a damage taken reduced. So be very careful with freezing shit in them, because you will buff basically all the mobs around you. Also, I should be heroing here. I have it up. I don't know why I'm not. If you're taking temporal warp and not getting full use out of your lust, it might just be beneficial to you for you to run time anomaly, but temporal warp is the better choice if possible. That's the Chant of the Dead cast going off. Like I said, it buffs any of their friendlies that are in it, the Death Speakers, and will basically one-shot you. So don't stand in the big green circle on the ground. I know it's hard. It's a pretty thing to look at. Don't mind that. I clicked the wrong scene on my on my keypad. At this point, we're thinking it's a very tight timer, so we're thinking of trying to do some weird shit to time this key. Because right now we have 14 minutes left, 14 and a half minutes. We have 2 tyrannical bosses, which basically give yourself 4.5 minutes for each of them, so 9 minutes. Which basically leaves us 5 minutes for the rest of the trash. And I'd probably even give yourself more than 4.5 minutes for each boss. Plus there's travel time. These souls are the shadow souls are the bane of my existence. I hate them in these keys. The fact it does so much of a damage increase and is toxic during the necrotic eruptions that like you can't stop. I mean, you can't stop the eruptions, but you can't stop them once they're already out. It's just a shit ability. It feels so bad to play around. Now, I don't totally agree with pulling this pack because these little bears give like no percent. So I wouldn't really recommend this pack. I think he basically just did it because we had Spiteful's up from the previous pack and couldn't mount. But this is not a good pack to do. I think this pack gives like 2%. Yeah, so there's 4 of those little guys that each give 0.19%, so basically 0.2%. And this beast collar gives 1.15, so it's not even that pack's not even 2%. You see, I'm trying to get my soul immediately because our damage actually is an issue at this point. Like, we still have 2 bosses travel time. And we're only at 88%. Plus, that basically means we need to play flawless for the rest of the key. We went to go immediately start the boss. We wanted Lust on cooldown, or at least get the RP going. I personally think we should have went and did a pack. So that we skipped the big guys at the end, but because the only issue is we needed Lust on cooldown like as soon as possible, so that we actually got 2 Lusts out of it. Because as you see, there's only 11 minutes left in the key. The main tip for this one is basically have defensives rolling as much as possible, because this guy hurts. Let's see how much a quick shot dealt like 60% of my health. For these, you want to make sure you're stacked with anyone else. And alter time every single Gale arrow. If you're stacked, like basically pixel stacked with someone else, you don't get hit by their tornadoes, and it's a lot easier to dodge them. It does make it a little chaotic when they get called back, but it's a lot easier right off the bat to dodge the tornadoes. Like there. It's very chaotic to get out of it, but as long as you're paying attention, it should be okay. I know it definitely feels awkward on this boss, but since it is 2 target, you technically should be casting Blizzard on cooldown. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. All the time. I did G-Invis this one because I saw it was very low. Which I'm glad I did, because I think I actually got hit by I got hit by the tornado, but I'm not sure I actually took damage, or if I did, I still had G-Invis going. Yeah, so every single quick shot here looks like it drops me about 60%. 50-60% of my health. So always have some sort of defensives rolling. Because if you get 2 in a row... Well, I don't think you can get 2 in a row, but 2 rather quick succession ones, you will be in danger. Like that. Again, alter timing every single one. You just insta-alter as soon as you get hit from that tornado. You see still with images and barrier up, I still get knocked down to 30% health. So like those tornadoes, the gale shots are no joke. You also need to be really careful when you're getting hit from the quick shots when the bosses aren't together. Because, as you guys know, the mechanic for this boss is they deal more damage the further apart they are. We decided not to stack Galeros this one. It was just kind of suspicious, a little sus with getting Quaking right beforehand and Thundering. As you can see, this is a very good Frost Mage boss. I'm doing basically 100k. This is basically leaving us with 5 minutes for the last boss, which is, it's doable, but very hard. This last boss is probably the hardest boss in this dungeon on Tyrannical. There are both one-shot combos you can have, well, a lot of one-shot combos, which you'll end up seeing. I actually die from one of them. And intermission is incredibly hard. As you saw, we just coordinated. I said I'm going to CC far right. The hierarchy you go, I feel like it's almost necessary that you have to start CCing ads and intermission. So I'm CCing the far right ad so that we only have to deal with at most 3. And then we can go to the 4th one when we're done with the others. Just because the amount of kicks required for the storm bolts is insane. And on Tyrannical, it's also basically like a... I don't think the storm bolts are actually a one-shot on this key, but you're basically going to get one-shot because you're never going to be full HP during the intermission. We're trying to game our Thundering as much as possible. Very risky doing that, but we know at this time our timer is so tight that we need to get as much damage. At this point, we're also coordinating what defensives. The Thundering Spear on the last boss, basically the Demon Hunter is saying if he gets 2 in a row, he needs a defensive for it. Luckily, as a mage, we are one of the best defensive classes for damage that we know is coming. Either Ice Block, Barrier, Images, G-Invis. At this point, we just said we're CCing both left ads. I'm glad that I did this. I lusted personally. It ends up to bite us a little bit in the butt later on, but the damage I think was actually needed, and I think if I didn't lust on my own and waited for the group, I think we wouldn't have timed. So at that point, I saw I only had 4 minutes on my debuff. I basically knew if I lusted, I needed to basically shifting power on cooldown as soon as it came up, no matter what, in order to get it in time. You see this upheaval that is unavoidable damage basically brought everyone to like 15% health. So a lot of these are very scary mechanics, and then you need defensives for basically everything. I debated saving Icy Veins because I need it for intermission, but The damage that was needed for this boss is you cannot hold cooldowns. Wow, words. I would rather do a little bit less damage in intermission and guarantee that we're actually going to get there and have the chance to time this key. So I had barrier and mirror images up at that point, and I still got hit down to 50% health. So a 20% DR plus basically a 30% shield barrier, and I still got hit down to 30% or 50%. I need to be shifting powering, knowing that we needed another lust. I needed to be paying attention to that more. Because it almost comes back to bite us in the ass at the end of this boss. Also, if you get hit by any of these mechanics in this intermission, you're dead. You're not surviving. Luckily for us, a lot of these the spears went on our rogue. The rogue, as well as mages, you can basically invis or vanish every single one. The trick is you have to do it. You can't use it until the cast actually starts on you. As you saw, I got one shot and our rogue proc cheat death. Just unlucky that the rogue basically jumped out on top of me, but it is what it is. You can alter time every single one of those. I normally do. I don't know why I didn't there. I think I was more so worried about just not dying from quaking than min-maxing things. Again, use defensives for every single one of those things. So I didn't have Lust up, and we needed it here. I'm pretty sure we ended up drumsing. Yeah. Which we should have been fine if we didn't drums, but... Well, in hindsight, we would have been fine. Obviously don't know that now, but... Very, not an easy key, especially on, especially on Tyrannical. Also, as you saw, I chat talked that Demon Hunter at the end. Because, as you see, what about that academy again? Because he tried calling me shit during our academy. Which, to be fair, I did not play well in the academy. And I bricked it because of me. But, you know, we don't worry about that. But yeah, there's a 24 Nokhud, Tyrannical. Not an easy key, like I said, by any means. Luckily, we had all the people that we have are very good defensively. They have a lot of things to survive. Rogue and Mage are probably two of the best, followed by Warrior Tank and a Druid Healer. We just have a lot of defenses that we can cycle through for bosses. But this is a very hard key that I was definitely surprised that I timed. And at the point of this, I had also only timed a 22, I think, Nokhud. As you saw, it gave me like 19 IO or something like that. But yeah, I don't know if I mouse over my damage. Oh well, I'm not too worried if I don't. But yeah, 101k for a 24 Tyrannical Nokhud. As of still now, that is my highest key that I've done. I have not even gotten into a 24 Shadow Moon or Court, so yeah, that is the commentary for this 24 Nokhud. So yeah.